So the basic question is, what can you learn from insolvency? And I mean, insolvency is always like a very sensitive topic, especially I'd say in Germany or probably Europe. A lot of people are ashamed of failing, and insolvency in some kind is failing. But I really think we have to break up this taboo topic and openly talk about it. So as I said, tonight I'm going to share the story, but in the end, I really want to show you some steps or maybe some tools what you can do if you're maybe in this situation or before that. So for my introduction, I'm Janik. I call myself a solution finder or generalist or 100% optimist. So it's if you talk to me, you probably find out very fast that I'm always trying to find solutions or find the positive out of situations. Sometimes hard. Some friends tell me I'm too optimistic. Some friends tell me I need to be more realistic. I think we need a mix of everything. But I think you always need some kind of optimism, and especially in stressful situations. So tonight I would like to invite you on the journey. That's on the left side. That's me. I used to have wonderful blonde hair. Now they changed to gray. Probably a lot of you know wakeboarding or have seen wakeboarding or water skiing, especially worldwide. This is a sport you can do. You might know it from behind the boat. I basically grew up on a cable wake park. So that's me when I was, I think, 4 or 5. So basically wakeboarded my whole life, so more than 20 years now. It happened through my dad, who got into wakeboarding very early, and that's also how the story started. How I got involved into wakeboarding, into water skiing, and how all the stories started with our company, Assesment. And today it's about the journey, what happened from this little cute guy to this guy. So I changed my wetsuit to a regular suit. That's because I moved to Munich. I tried to find a job here in Munich with my wetsuit, but it didn't work out. So it basically changed my life, what happened in the last years. And I don't want to go way back all the way to 1992 or whatever. I think it's important to look back to the last 2 years that are mainly the most important ones, or maybe 3 years. The 26th of January 2018 was a day that literally changed my life. That was the day my dad went to the court to file for the insolvency. And that's a point in your life where definitely something changes. It's a point where something breaks apart, where you're definitely willing to give up 100%, but also a point where I think you have the opportunity to change something or to create something new. And tonight is about pretty much this day, how it came to this day, and what we've done to make this day probably one of the, I'd say, best ones in our lives. So I'm gonna go back, wakeboarding. A lot of you know wakeboarding. It's a passion for me, it's a passion from the family. I see my dad is in the call too. I think my mom and my brother too. So we all grew up with wakeboarding. We grew up with the sport. My dad founded the company in 1992, so 28 years ago. And since that day, we're always like surrounded by water skiing. And I think wakeboarding especially is an awesome sport. It's a lot of fun. You can do it. You can do it as a beginner. You can have fun. You can do it as a professional, have fun. It's one of my favorite sports you can do. And if you've never tried it, definitely go out and try it. You can definitely find a cable park and try it. And it's also like a very great industry. Like everybody in this industry knows everybody. Like it's a very small industry. Very, let's say, happy industry. So it's not like the typical corporate industry. There are 2, maybe 3 manufacturers of cable parks in the world. So a very, very small one. And it all started, I use this photo. It explains a lot from the history and explains a lot of what happened. So this photo was 3 years ago, 2017. We had the 25th anniversary of Assesment. And this photo shows a lot. On the bottom, well, it shows my dad. On the left side, it shows the new building, what we built. And it goes back like what we've done. So the company was founded in 92. I think the first cable park was sold 1996. But I think the very interesting years came up from 2008, 2009 in the economic crisis, where we doubled our revenue in 1 year. So it basically happened because we invented a new product. There's there's regular cable parks where you go in circles around, and we invented a cable that is just going back and forth. So from this point on, wakeboarding was accessible for literally everybody and everyone at all levels. In that year, we doubled our revenue, which sounds great in the first point, but in the long term, sometimes if you grow too fast, it's not healthy for your company. So basically what happened back then was we had one office, one small workshop. And that time we had to split up in like 4 different offices, 4 different workshops, just one for logistics, one for spare parts. So pretty crazy times at that time. And everything seemed to be working out very, very good. So over the years, we were growing and growing. So 2008, we were like 10 to 15 people. End of 2016, we were up to 40 people with around 5 million revenue. So it seemed like a pretty solid company if you look at it. But then some problems occurred. And I always say when you look at insolvency, I think it's not a point that hits you like on a day-to-day basis. There are always like signs you probably can see, but you're not willing to see before it happens. And for us, it was we had always a dream of building the office and the house. There was one very big investment, and one hint on this side: if you're planning to build or invest, never go to a bank and get a credit as high as your yearly revenue. It's not working out. So basic economic lessons: don't do that. Also, if they're willing to give it to you, don't do it. So basically, we built the new office. There was one very big cause for the crisis we had. The second one was general, like the market was decreasing. Like the market in general was going back. We thought the market would grow, so we're gonna do more revenue. It turned out the opposite. It decreased. And the third one, we were involved in a project in Singapore. And if you think Germany or Europe is like a bureaucratic surrounding, never go to Singapore, because there was a cable park for 9 years, and this cable park was shut down or like built down and then rebuilt. And to rebuild it, it had to go through like new proceedings from the government, which took 2 years, which was supposed to go like 2 months. In the end, it took 2 years and cost a lot of money or burned a lot of money. And those 3 reasons led us to a point where we were out of cash. So we basically were out of liquidity, had the banks in our necks with all the credit lines giving to us. And we're basically like, pretty much out of cash. And that's the point where you realize, okay, you have to do something. And then mid of 2016, the banks came to us and they were like, okay, the numbers are not looking what they're supposed to, what you told us they're gonna look like. We're worried that you're not being able to pay back our money. And that was the point where we started to realize something is wrong or we have to change something, but we're not willing to, because we thought everything was going fine, everything was working out very well. In the end, it turned out it didn't. And then mid 2016, the bank came to us and we had a very nice banker. He was called Mr. Sommer. Well, he was not nice. Definitely not. And he started arguing like, okay, we need an external consultant. We were like, what the fuck? We need an external consultant for? Everything is working out. We have some crisis, cash is running low, but everything's working out. Don't worry, everything's working out. And then he was like, well, you don't have a choice. You have to work with him. And we were like, okay, let's see. And that was the point where I opened like a big box, opened the box and put in like the consultant and wrote like people I don't want to work with together, wrote on the box and then closed it. And that was the first point. Then some random guy, or like from me at this point, he was a random guy. He started to look at our numbers, look at our processes, and started complaining like everything is going bad, nothing is working out, blah, 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 blah. And that's the point where you really like, okay, that's going to be a tough year. But it turned out even better. Like we started working out with the consultant. In the end, he became a very good friend, I'd say. But I come to that point later again. But the second point was, which was a highlight for me, when the bank came and they didn't believe our financial statements. So what they basically did is they had our annual financials, and they were like, no, we don't believe what we have in the inventory written down. So we almost had like 1 million on stock, and they're like, no, that can't be. They don't believe it. So in Germany, there's something that's called like a public accountant or public auditor. And at that point, you realize, okay, the bank is getting really serious, and it's not going to be fun anymore. And then some days later, it was end of, I think, August, September 2017, I had the first appointment with the auditor, and he showed up in his new Audi R6 tailor-made suit, and I was standing in front of him, looking at him like, wow, that's definitely not what I was looking for. With 1 hour you spending here and paying your leasing for your car, this is something we don't need at the moment at all. And I opened the box again where I had this consultant in there and put this guy in there too, and then shoved away and like, well, I'm not gonna work with these guys, never. But at some point it turned out, well, you maybe have to work with them. And then highlight for me was, so we had to do the financial audits, we had to work with the consultant, there was no way around. And then at a certain point I started to realize, okay, let's do the best out of it. Let's use all the knowledge we can gain from them. Let's do the best what we can do. And my personal highlight was, so usually you need like 2 to 3 months for your financial statements. That's what we used to need around. And even then you're fast. But the bank was so generous, giving us like till the end of January 2017. So we basically had like 3 weeks to finalize everything, because we did all the inventory, everything end of 2016. And then the highlight was, we hadn't, like I gave a presentation to the bank. So the CEO of the bank came, like 2 more consultants. The auditor came, the consultant came, some of my colleagues were in this room. And I was showing the bank and everybody in this room everything we've done. So from reorganizing processes, looking at the numbers, like insurances, everything you can look at in a company where you have some potential to optimize what we've done. So we had like a catalog of like over, I think 80 steps or 80 possibilities what we could do, and basically we tried to do all of them. In the end, it turned out that the stock we had, the auditor like checked it. So everything we had on stock, yeah, that's right, your bank, everything they have written down in the statement is correct. And was given this presentation in our meeting room, and the second I was done, I felt very bad. I had to get out of the room, came back some minutes later, and they were still discussing about some points, but I didn't really listen anymore. And after the meeting, our controller, Johannes, came to me and like, well, Janik, you missed the best part. I'm like, well, why? And he was like, well, the moment you left, the CEO of the bank started to argue against you and everything you've done. And the second moment, the auditor stands up and tells the CEO of the bank to shut up and let us work. And that was a point where I realized, well, maybe I have to open the box a little bit, take a closer look at those guys, and maybe work with them together. And that turned out to be very good. And over the year, we were able to do a lot of things together, and he was very supportive, both of them. But it didn't get that much better. Like we still had cash problems, and so the banks were not willing to give us any more money. So we had to find another solution. And for us, the solution was a private investor. So my part was finding an investor who's willing to get rid of the banks, invest a lot of money in a very small market, in a very small industry. It was a challenge, but it finally worked out. So I was able to find somebody. It was mid of 2017. And from that point on, we worked on contracts, we worked on how to do all the asset deals, how to invest the money, how to pay out the banks, everything. And so we had in total like over 800 pages of contracts. And those 800 pages of contracts were supposed to be signed on the 17th of December 2017. But luckily, well, it's unluckily, but unfortunately, one bank who was refinancing our bank, they weren't able to get the internal approvals for that deal on time. So for us was a point we were end of December, we were all set to get the deals done the next day or 2 days after, be ready to pay all the loans, like paychecks for the employees and everything. And that day they came to us like, well, it's not going to happen. And that's the point where really you're done in the moment. So in that point, Christmas was very bad this year. It was not a lot of fun. So in Christmas time, we were sitting down with the consultant and with the investor to find a solution what we can do. And the only possibility we had was to go to the court and file for insolvency. And I think that's the point to describe in the picture. Like, I know it's working. Like, keep on going, keep on going, keep on running. At a certain point, you just get hammered down. And that was the point where we decided, okay, we have to do something. But the first thing you recognize is this. You're like, shit, I have no idea what to do. We have no way. We need cash. We don't know how to pay our employees, and so on and so on. So we used those 2 weeks to find a new solution, what we can do. And this solution was going to the court, filing for insolvency. And now in Germany it is, I'm not sure how it's in other European countries. I think in France it's the same. You have the possibility for, like, it's called Eigenverwaltung in Deutsch, in German. So you basically are able to run through the insolvency by yourself. You only get an attorney by your side who's more like a supervisor, but he's not in control of the whole process. So you're still in control of your company. And you have a supervisor who's checking everything, if the process is going all right, if you like within the law and stuff. And the other option in Germany, you go to court and file for a regular insolvency. So an attorney takes over as CEO, and his main job is to collect money to either sell the company or sell the assets or find the best solutions for all the stakeholders. And we were able to go to the court and file for the Eigenverwaltung. The problem is you can't go to the court and say, I want the Eigenverwaltung, and you get it. You go to the court and you might get it. The only thing you can do is like let's say to increase the probability that you can get it, but you're never sure if you can get it. So that was the point, the 26th of January 2018, when my dad went to the court in the morning, and that day definitely changed our life, because from that point on, we came back to the company, and within a couple of hours, the attorney came by, and you were standing in front of your people, in front of your employees, telling them, we're bankrupt. Don't worry, you get your paychecks from the Agentur für Arbeit, so from the state government, for like at least 3 months. We have an investor, he's taking over the company, blah, 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 blah. But the point is, nobody in that moment believes you, and everybody's feeling like, well, we're bankrupt. That's the only thing they hear. And it's a very bad moment when you stand in front of all those people. I think a very important point, if you're at this stage, is being open to everybody, talk to them, what happened, what's the status, how is it going? So from that point on, we were sure, okay, we filed for insolvency, but then it takes a couple of days till the court decides which way you can go or not. It turned out like 2 days after we can go this way, and then 2 weeks after, on the 14th of February, the insolvency proceedings were opened. But I think at that point, both have a choice. So you definitely, it's not a great moment where you're at. So you definitely fucked up something went wrong, but you always have the choice which way I choose. And at that point, for me, it was clear, okay, so we are in the insolvency, but for me, it's sure it's going to be the best insolvency the court's ever going to see. This is going to be the best insolvency the attorney ever made. This is going to be the fastest one, the best one, the cleanest one whatsoever. So my point was, okay, we are in a shitty situation, but let's make the best out of it. And there was no other way. Like, it was a fact that we went through insolvency, or we have to go through that. The question is how. And I totally believe in life that you always have the choice which way to go. 100% in every situation you are, you always have the choice to decide which way you want to go. And I think we decided for, let's say, the right way. It's a hurtful way. Like, we could also have said, well, we're not filing for Eigenverwaltung, we just let it go down. For personally, would have been pretty much like the same. But for the company and employees and like the story after, this was definitely the better way. And also, like, from the retrospective, from now on, that was the best thing or the best choice we ever made. And it turned out very good. Like, the proceedings were very fast. I think 3 months after, we had the first appointment on the first court appointment, 2 months after. And they were ready to like open the process and everything, but it turned out we were pretty much done with everything. So we had all the documents ready. We had all, like, they're coming some like surveyors or like experts, like valuing the house, valuing the company, valuing all the assets. And there was also a point for me. One day, those experts came by and they valued like the house, and they were standing in my flat and like, well, the couch is worth like 100 euros, whatever. And there was a point for me in my life where I said, okay, no, never again anybody's going to come in my room and value what's my room worth. And that was like, they had to do it because everything was sold, especially in the company. And you have like two values. So one is under the circumstance that the company is being sold and it keeps on going, and the other one is the company is being shut down. So you have two different values written in the books. And we had the solution that the company will keep on going. So our solution was, we filed for insolvency in Eigenverwaltung. We found a new company with the investor. With the new company, we bought all the assets from the old company. So all the employees were transferred to the new company, all the spare parts, the equipment, the transferred to the new company, or well, bought from the new company out of the insolvency. The good part with the insolvency is like, you lose everything. Like, well, you don't have any commitments anymore to any suppliers, anything. So all that, like all contracts, everything stays in the old company, which is bad on the one side for the supplier, but good on the other side if you're bankrupt and don't even have any cash to pay anyone at all. But that point also is very, well, for me, was very, very hurtful when you have to call suppliers and tell them, well, they're not going to get their money. This is something, it's not a lot of fun. It's hurting a lot, but you definitely learn a lot. And as I said, from this point on, it turned out to be the best way for everybody involved. We had to, well, some employees had to leave the company because we had to reduce personal costs. We tried the best to do as little as possible. The company is still alive today. They're still selling cable products, and there's still, I think, over 20 people today. So the company is running good. The investors, I hope he's happy. I don't know. So it turned out to be, let's say, the best way. But also for us, it changed a lot. But it comes to that point later on. I would like to take some minutes on what can you concretely do if you're in such a moment, or if you're in such a position where you are really, let's say, sorry, pardon my French, fucked up. So I have like 3 different types. I have like 2 questions I ask myself pretty much all the time. It has 2 principles I try to follow, and like 2 tools I use for myself to find a way out of it. And I think if I start with the questions, the first one is, what's the worst case that could possibly happen? And if you start thinking about that question, for me, always, I gain new ways of thinking. I find new solutions, and I find like a new perspective with that. Because in the end, for me, my worst case was that we lose the house, that we lose the company, and in the end, I don't have a place to sleep anymore. So in my brain, the thought came, well, I had a friend, I think he's in the call too, Jules, probably. Well, he stayed on my couch for like half a year. So I definitely can stay for half a year on his couch. So the worst case for me turned out to be not too bad. But I think what this question also helps you with is getting close to the worst case scenario. So we always are afraid of something. We are afraid of certain situations. We are afraid of certain things that could happen, but we're also afraid of to write them down. So if I start writing down the answer to that question, first point, or will help me, the worst case is sometimes not that bad as you thought it would be. And the second point, you're finding new solutions on how to solve the situation. And that leads me to the second question I ask myself at a certain point: who can give me a helping hand? Point where I think very important also to talk about the topic of shame. You're very ashamed of what happened. You're ashamed of what happened to the company. You're ashamed of yourself. But I think this is something you shouldn't be ashamed of. And talking about going through the situation, going through all the story, help. So if you start thinking about like, well, who might give me a helping hand, who might help me out in this situation? For example, for me, it turned out the auditor was a very good friend. He helped me. Turned out to be a very good friend. He's still helping us out at some points in some situations. So really start being creative about who might help you. It might be friends, be family, but also might be standing in front of you in the first point you thought, well, that's the worst of he's a very good, I think his father or someone was a friend of my grandpa. And my grandpa died 6 weeks ago. And he was at the ceremony. And I was walking out of the church looking at this guy and like, well, I didn't expect you here. And I sent him an email after and like, well, thank you for coming by. And he's like, well, it was my honor to come by. And he offered to come by to Munich and let's have a beer together. So we see how that turns out. But like in the first point, I thought this guy with his tailor-made suit and Audi R6 is like the worst guy that could happen to you. In the end, turned out like he's one of the nicest guys you've ever met. Open to think about the question, who might help you? Two other points. As I said, if you talk with other people about it, they might have ideas, solutions, or they might help you. And it is a very hard situation. It's a very hard story. It's a long story. I was very lucky. I had a very at the time, she was very supportive for me. And I talked a lot about it and really or in public, talk about the topic helps you. And if you need professional help, don't be ashamed of that. It's that too. I mean, that changes everything. I mean, for my dad, he lost his company, which he founded 25 years ago. I lost kind of my future, whatever. So it's something that's definitely very bad, and that can make you very, very sad. So if you need help, look for help, talk about with people, talk about in public, go to a fuck up night. That's an awesome format. I just went to the one in Munich and Innsbruck. Great thing. If you ever have the chance, go to a fuck up night. You hear great stories. But really talk openly about the topic of failures. It's definitely worth it. One more principle, keep on going. I think Jules, you again, we were running a marathon last year together. He was way faster than me, but I'm gonna beat him next year. It's the same when you're running a marathon. You start running and you think everything goes good and just 42 kilometers, whatever. But at a certain point, your body just hurts and your brain is asking the question, why the fuck are you doing that? Why are you running? Everything hurts. That's the stupidest thing you've ever done. And your brain starts arguing with your body. It's very hard because you really think like, why I'm doing that. But the moment you run through the goal, when you run to the Olympic Center here in Munich, that's the best thing you can ever imagine of. And to say it in Churchill's words, if you're going through hell, keep going. So if you're in a crisis, I mean, for now, especially with the Corona times, we have no idea what this is going to. Nobody knows that. But definitely keep on going. Keep on going what you're doing. Be optimistic. Find new ways. Think about new business models. Keep on going. Don't quit now. I think now is the worst time to quit. 100%. I think two more, let's say, tools. What I think is very helpful in any situation you are. When you're in the beginning of crisis, or not even a crisis, you can do it today. Do a current assessment. Get a clear picture of where you are at the moment. For example, Corona for now, how bad is it impacting me or affecting me? Is it affecting me at all? Is it affecting me very bad? What are the exact problems? What does it mean in numbers? What does it mean in the next 6 months, whatever? So really start writing down how is the current situation, because that helps you really get a clear picture of what might be the problem, but also finding ways of how to tackle those problems. So really sit down, do an assessment of the current situation. And another one, I don't know if there's an English word for that. It's called in German Diagnose. I didn't find a good English word for that. You can imagine if you go to a certain point in the future and you're sitting at this point in the future and then look back to today. So imagine in 6 months, you're sitting with a friend in a cafe and talking about what happened in March during Corona times. And I think it's very important to try to do a forecast. It helps you to get a picture of a set of ways, set of goals or whatever. But like this picture says, it's a heavy rain forecast, but I think the question is, what are you doing out of the rain? You can go out, have fun, jump into the water. I think when you're able to find a way to go like look in the future and then look back, it turns out that the situation is not as bad as you might have thought. Like an example for that is if you go to the dentist. Well, I'm not a big fan of dentists. I don't know about you, but usually I'm kind of afraid going to the dentist. But once I've been to the dentist, I'm coming home, it turns out it was not that bad. And if I start thinking about like from a future point backwards, I get a clearer picture of how it might go. And it turns out, well, it might be not too bad. So these two tools might help you in any situation, but I think no matter what, an insolvency changes you, it changes everything. I think it changes you as a person. I personally never learned as much as in those, let's say, well, 1.5, 2 years in total, I guess. At a certain point where you have to understand how the financials are working or not. You have to understand how the process are working. You have to understand how financing is working. So it definitely changes you. But I think you always have the possibility to get up and keep on running. So get up, get back on treadmill, and keep on running. But I think for me, if I point out like the most important things what I learned from the insolvency is you start learning, or what I learned, what's important for me. And basically, well, I lost a lot. My parents lost pretty much everything. We lost in family pretty much everything we had. But I think we gained this, and as family, friends, everything. And that's a picture of us now in December. I visited my parents in Italy during Christmas, and that photo would have never been taken 2 years ago. Never. I mean, it's we were a family company, so I was working together with my dad. works out sometimes very good, but sometimes not. At a certain point, we're more or less shouting at each other. My mom always was like in between the chairs. My brother moved to Cologne a couple of years ago, so he was not that involved anymore. But that was a very bad time for the family. And I mean, their families that like don't get back together through such stories, or like get divorced or whatever. But I think if you find out what your values are and what's very important to you, it's worth everything. And to sum everything up in like one sentence, one word, definitely lost materially, but in life. And I think when you look at the picture, you see the moon. From a current point, we only see the front side, so we don't see the back side. And I think we need to encourage ourselves to start getting into a rocket and see what's behind it. And doesn't matter what situation we're in, if it's Corona, if it's some other crisis, doesn't matter. So the worst thing that could happen for me was losing everything materially, but what I gained in life, what I learned from myself, everything what happened was definitely worth it. And at a certain point, I kind of wish everybody goes through an insolvency in his life for some reasons. On the other side, don't try it. You learn a lot and you find out a lot about by yourself, and what you can gain in life is just awesome. So in whatever situation you are, might be good, might be bad, just keep on going, keep on doing it. That's the part from my side. If you have any questions, just reach out. You can reach me anytime. I'm happy to help. If you're in the insolvency proceedings or whatever, or you just want to talk with somebody about anything, just give me a call, reach out to me. And that's story from my part. I hope some of you got some topics for himself, and maybe one of you took home a point or two that's helpful for him or her.
Thank you very much. That is impressive, really. Let that sink in, guys. Wow. Are there any questions from the audience? Is there something that you would like to ask, Janik? Until then, until the people are writing questions, thank you a lot also for having the courage and being so honest with us, giving us real insights into how you felt, also into like how also to your family. You said that your parents are on the call also, so hi to them as well. It's impressive how you deal with that. It's really good. You're absolutely right with what you said in the beginning, that especially in Germany, I guess, it's good that we talk about failures and learn from it and not be ashamed of that, but that we use it as a chance to learn and grow and share those experiences. So thank you for that, really, that you come here and share that with us. So let's have a look. Are there any questions? People are thankful. They'll say thank you. Being super proud. What is the biggest regret you have about things you could have changed before your insolvency? Tough question, huh?
Is it like before, like to prevent everything from insolvency, or?
Yeah, something that you could have changed before the insolvency. So something that you regret. What would you do different today?
Well, that's a very hard question, because I somehow live from the mindset that every decision I made in my life led me to where I am today. So that's nothing I can really regret. I think what you could do different in a different way is how to run the company from like an economic side. Visionaries, but we're not the greatest with numbers. So you have two people shooting for the moon, but nobody calculating in the back how long the rocket's gonna last. So if I would do one thing differently, get like a sparring partner earlier in the company who is focusing on the numbers. So I think you always need both. You need the guys and the visionaries, but you also need the guys like tech guys, number guys, whatever. So you always need like a balance between both. So this is something, if you would ask me what I would do differently, this is that, but more from like a person, like who you have in the company, from people, employees.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So, indeed. Maybe a tough question. How do you think did it change you personally? Like how do you think did you evolve based on that as a person? Because you said it changed you a lot also.
Well, I think there are some points. One very important topic which I already mentioned is change. Let's say not the values, but how you stand. It used to be different in the past. So for me, if you lose everything, what's a very nice point about that? People ask me today, like, well, are you not afraid to do anything? Like, well, I don't have anything to lose, so let's go. So if you, I think that's definitely like how I approach things. I'm not scared of failing. I'm not scared of losing. On the other hand, I'm very trying to stand up for who I am. And on the other hand, for example, for myself, I always identified myself a lot company. So I've had to find new identity. Look in your life, you have like parts of your identity is like your company or your job, your partner, spirituality or whatever. And at a certain point, everything broke apart. So losing a company, losing a role, losing kind of part of your identity. Well, to find out who you are and be honest to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that answers the questions.
No, a good takeaway, yes. I think for most of the people, it just has to like think in what you just presented. So I see lots of thank yous, more than also in the other webinars. One is asking, what is your favorite wakeboard spot?
Well, I have to stay in the allegory as my parents are running the park again. So it turned out my parents and myself, the first photo, this is the cable park in the allegory, one of the oldest ones in Germany. And we used to operate a couple of years back until 2006. Then not anymore, 2009, I don't remember. Now they, well, back to roots, my parents are running the park again. So I'm definitely loving it over there.
Maybe you can send a Google link to the group chat.
Sure.
For those who really want to know it. We have another comment of Ralph. He says, an insolvency is not the end of everything. Sometimes you have to go forward in another direction, and this could be your new compass. I've seen several people going insolvent, starting new companies later on. A lot of managers say that they had on or sometimes several insolvencies in their past. That's probably something I can agree on, right? So once you fall, you can learn from it, start a new company, and do it better that time.
100%.
Another good comment too.
100%.
Tough
I
times don't last.
I think. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I think if I get back to the point, a lot of managers went through several insolvencies. I always think it's a question of how bad the insolvency is. For pre-credit lines. Insolvency. That's something that affects you more if you just lose a company. But 100%, it's like it could be a new compass, as you said, right? 100%. I think if you look at people like Elon Musk or whoever, they went through tons of insolvencies.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Are there any more questions from the audience? Seems like no, I think everyone is like totally wow. Yeah. Would you be ready and personally and also mentally able to found again another company?
100%, yes.
Great.
100%.
you think you would need some more time, or like for example, when you would ask that question 6 months ago, like how much time do you personally needed to come to that point that you say, okay, I'm ready to start a company again?
That's a tough one. So when I quit, so I joined the process of like or like onboarding of the new CEO of the new company and finishing all the sales process in the beginning of 2018. So I left May 2018, April, May, whatever. But and then for me, I had a job in a consultant company where it was very important to have a job at a company which is financially stable. So I was not ready to work for the startup at that point. So now it's over 2 years ago, but now I'd say I'm definitely ready to keep on going, or like found a new company or anything.
So it was also time that you just needed time to have a stable environment, relax, get over it, learn, and also like realize what happened maybe.
Yeah.
Do you recognize moments that today you still realize or recognize moments of truth maybe, or turning points that you are now able to see but you weren't like a few months ago?
Points where I'm now ready to, well, let's say, find a new company.
Yeah, also like when you look back and now you realize, like maybe sometimes things just happen and you just take them as they are, and then a few months later or years later you understand why. And are there still things like that, or do you feel that you have already a good overview of what happened?
I think I'm coming to a point where I'm having a good overview. So what really helped me a lot is I was talking at the Fuck Up Night in Munich in the beginning of February this year, and preparing for that evening, telling the story helped me a lot, like to review what happened that time, going through the whole story, also like my parents, talking with them about the whole story. So I think now I'm at a pretty good point where I think I have a pretty good, let's say a red, how do you say in English, like a red line.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool. Good. What is your favorite book? Do you have an idol?
It's hard. um, um, that's a tough one. I think favorite books, there are a couple of very, very interesting books. I think one I like a lot is Homo Deus. Another one in German, Du musst nicht von allen gemocht werden. It's like a psychological book. That's really impressing me at the moment. Like the view on the psychology on the human being. It's very interesting. I could recommend that 100%. There are tons of good books. But those are like two must reads in my eyes.
Mm.
Do you have an idol? Well, I don't have that one person I look up to. I have a lot of persons I really think I can learn a lot from them, or like a lot of my idols. For me, definitely Elon Musk is somebody I look up to because he's some crazy guy, just doing things so differently. But also people like Matthias Döpfner from Axel Springer. He's an awesome guy in my eyes. But also like people, for example, there's a podcast, it's called On the Way to New Work. And those two people, Christoph Magnussen and Michael Traub, what they give back to the community, to the people. So I don't have that one person I say he's my idol. I have a lot of people I'm really looking up to and I would like to get in touch with for some reason.
that also goes hand in hand with what Ralph is just posting into the group. I read aloud because it's only to the discussion, like to the hosts. He said, I learned from others that start several new companies in parallel is one of the best ways to get over times like this. So spread the risk, in fact. But in most cases, for this, you need a few partners that go this way with you. You only have to find the right people for it and convince them to jump in. Would you agree to that?
I never thought about that. It's, well, if you ask me now, it seems like a very good way. So yeah, 100%. I'm asking myself at the moment, like, are you able to put like all the effort certain companies need at the beginning time to put that into the company where it's needed? So if you maybe you're losing the focus, but I think it depends on how much you're spreading. If you start now and say, well, I have to found like 100 companies, might be hard. But if you start like, well, I do like 1, 4, I think it can work out pretty good.
And probably it also matters like with who you do it, like how many partners you have, how you can trust them. Of course, you need to trust them, but like how is the setup of the entire team or the different teams in the respective companies?
Yeah,
probably.
Definitely.
Nice. So I'm just checking if there are more questions from the audience. Oh, everyone is so thankful. That's great.
And as I said, like I think you probably can see my number in my email. So if you have any questions, also like
that you don't want to ask here.
If you have any question about the process of insolvency, just reach out to me anytime.
Yeah, and sometimes also just takes a bit of time. Sleep over it, and tomorrow maybe there are questions. So cool. So is there a last thing that you would like to add, Janik, that we haven't spoken about yet? One last word.
No, not really. I really like it's a personal matter. I really sorry. I really encourage everybody to really, especially in those tough times, really use that time to find out about yourself, find out about what you really want to do, find out what's your current situation, and find possibilities and solutions. There are definitely solutions. Every problem that you had in the past is solved for by today, probably. So the problems you might have now probably will be solved someday soon.